Have you ever wondered why some people treated you as if you were invisible? Why they belittled you, dismissed you, or made you feel insignificant? I want to share a truth that will fundamentally shift the way you understand human behavior. I discovered a psychological insight so profound that once you grasp it, you'll never see interactions the same way again. What if I told you that the way people treated you had very little to do with who you are? That their cruelty was, in reality, a reflection of unresolved struggles within themselves? Stay with me, because by the end of this discussion, you'll understand the hidden psychology behind mistreatment and, more importantly, why you attracted it into your life. This is not about placing blame. It's about liberation. The insights I'm about to share are designed to free you from patterns that have held you captive for far too long. Let's start with a hard truth. You have been mistreated. It may have been a parent who never acknowledged your worth, a partner who constantly criticized you, friends who broke your trust, or colleagues who undermined your efforts. You've likely asked yourself countless times, what did I do wrong? Why me? Am I really unworthy? From the perspective of analytical psychology, these questions miss the point. The mistreatment was neither random nor deserved. Through decades of studying the human psyche, I discovered something that may surprise you. Cruelty follows predictable psychological patterns, dependent of the victim's value. Here's where it becomes more complex. We also unconsciously participate in these patterns. Not because we seek pain, but due to factors buried deep within our unconscious mind, often inherited or unexamined. Until we recognize these forces, we continue to attract the same type of people who treat us poorly. But why? Stay attentive. The answer has the power to transform your life. I've revealed a concept many fail to grasp until we make the unconscious conscious. It will guide our lives, and we will call its outcomes fate. Let that sink in. My work with thousands of patients revealed that humans operate on two levels of awareness: the conscious mind, which we recognize, and the unconscious, which governs up to 95% of our behavior. The unconscious contains everything we've repressed, denied, or refused to acknowledge about ourselves. I call this the shadow. And here's the critical insight. Your shadow is not passive. It actively shapes your reality. It shapes who you are drawn to, who you allow into your life, and how others treat you. From my perspective, those who mistreated you were responding to something invisible that you were unconsciously projecting, not your conscious goals or stated values, but the unresolved wounds, hidden aspects, and denied parts of yourself. These individuals were not randomly cruel. There was a psychological magnetism between you and them that neither side fully understood. This process is entirely unconscious. The person causing harm does not consciously plan to destroy you, and you do not consciously seek pain. Yet the interaction unfolds anyway, driven by forces beneath conscious awareness. This is the dance of the shadow, and it has even deeper insights to reveal. One profound truth about human relationships is that we rarely perceive others as they truly are. Instead, we see them through the lens of our unconscious projections, a process I call shadow projection. This explains why mistreatment occurs. Here's how it works. Every person has a shadow. The parts of themselves they have rejected, denied, or been taught are unacceptable. Maybe you learned in childhood that anger was wrong, so you suppressed it. Maybe you were taught your needs didn't matter, so you ignored them. These rejected parts do not disappear. They reside in the unconscious, waiting. What we reject in ourselves, we often project onto others. The paradox is that we also attract people who embody the qualities we have disowned. If you denied your anger, you may attract angry people. If you rejected your strength, you may attract controlling individuals. If you suppressed your voice, you may attract those who silence you. The person who mistreated you was likely projecting their own shadow onto you. They recognized in you something they despised in themselves and could not acknowledge, so they attacked it in you instead. This is why abusers often accuse their victims of the very faults they possess. The narcissist calls you selfish. The liar calls you dishonest. The cruel person calls you mean. There is, however, an even deeper mechanism at work, one that explains why you accepted such treatment. Everything that irritates us in others can reveal truths about ourselves. Understanding this allows us to see the unconscious dynamics shaping our relationships and our own responses. This is where many people feel discomfort. I discovered something quite profound. Those who mistreated you were, in fact, reflecting your own unhealed wounds back to you. Before you object, let me clarify, this isn't about blaming the victim. It's about recognizing an unconscious pattern that keeps you trapped. In my perspective, we unconsciously recreate childhood wounds in our adult relationships. Not because we are drawn to suffering, but because the unconscious mind is trying to resolve what was left unresolved. For instance, if you were raised by an emotionally distant parent, your unconscious mind internalized that as the standard of affection. As a result, as an adult, you might unconsciously seek emotionally unavailable partners. You may tell yourself that you want someone present and caring, but your unconscious is following a different script, one that seeks familiarity. Perhaps in hopes of finally correcting the past, I found this repetition compulsion to be one of the strongest forces in human psychology. We feel drawn to revisit the very situations that once hurt us, hoping for a different outcome. A woman with a critical mother attracts critical partners. A man with an absent father seeks companions who abandon him. A neglected child grows into an adult who settles for mere scraps of affection. Those who mistreated you were not random. They were, in essence, perfectly cast actors in a drama orchestrated by your unconscious mind. They take on roles that mirror your unresolved wounds, be it the rejecting parent, the harsh authority figure, or the betraying friend. And here's the key point. They will continue to appear in various forms until the wound is healed. Changing cities, careers, or partners won't change the pattern. I call this fate when we remain unconscious. But choice emerges once we awaken to awareness. The question is, are you ready to awaken? What follows will reveal the exact way this transformation occurs. Beyond the personal unconscious, there is something even more profound at work. I identified what I called the collective unconscious, a layer of the human psyche shared by all people, containing universal patterns of behavior I referred to as archetypes. These archetypes are ancient psychological templates we all inherit: the victim, the persecutor, the rescuer, the tyrant, the scapegoat. I observed that these archetypes appear across all cultures and historical periods because they are embedded in the human psychological framework. When someone mistreated you, they were often enacting an archetypal role, and you were fulfilling the corresponding one. This dynamic is not purely personal, it is transpersonal. A superior who bullied you was embodying the tyrant archetype. A friend who betrayed you was revealing the shadow side of the companion archetype. A partner who abandoned you was acting out the age-old story of rejection that has recurred. Throughout human history, I discovered that until we become conscious of these archetypal patterns, we remain trapped within them. We unconsciously assume these roles, following a script written millennia ago. The mistreatment you experienced was not unique. It was an ancient pattern replaying through your life. However, there is a way to reclaim power. Once you recognize the archetype at play, you can step out of the role assigned to you. You can refuse to be the victim. You can reject the position of the scapegoat. Consciousness is the key to breaking free from these ancient structures. This leads to my most crucial insight. Most people navigate life wearing a mask, which I called the persona. It is the false self we show the world to gain acceptance and avoid rejection. The persona represents the identity we feel compelled to assume to function. Socially, the dutiful daughter who never expresses anger, the agreeable man who avoids boundaries, the steadfast individual who hides vulnerability. While the persona is necessary for social interaction, it becomes a prison if we over-identify with it. Losing sight of the mask means losing connection to our authentic self, the person beneath. Societal expectations and conditioning. There is a clear link to mistreatment here. People who primarily operate through their persona tend to attract relationships that reinforce the mask rather. If your persona is "I am the one who helps everyone," you will attract those who exploit your generosity. If your persona is "I need nothing from anyone," you will attract people who offer nothing. Often, those who mistreated you were responding to your persona, not your authentic self. They noticed the inauthenticity, the habit of pleasing others, the lack of boundaries you failed to uphold. Predatory individuals have an almost instinctive ability to recognize when someone is disconnected from their inner strength. They can identify a weakened persona from a distance. I learned that building genuine relationships requires letting go of the persona and showing up as your real self, wounds, needs, and boundaries included. When you stop performing and start being, everything shifts. The people who mistreated the false version of you cannot tolerate the real you. Your authenticity repels those who need you to remain artificial. But first, you must understand who has been benefiting from your lack of authenticity. In my view, some individuals are what I described as psychologically unconscious. They live entirely in their shadow, unaware of their destructive patterns. These are the emotional vampires who drained you. And I came to understand exactly why they targeted you. I suggested that unconscious individuals cannot generate their own psychological energy. They must take it from others. They feed on your attention, your empathy, your reactions, and your emotional openness. The more aware and empathetic you are, the more attractive you become as a source of energy. I found that highly sensitive and empathetic. People are especially susceptible to these unconscious predators. Why? Because empathetic individuals carry strong psychological energy and are often disconnected from their own shadow. They suppress their anger, their self-interest, and even their potential for harm. This makes them magnets for people who express those very traits. The narcissist who mistreated you, the friend who used you, the partner who manipulated you all were drawn to your inner light like moths to a flame. But they had no intention of sharing that light. In my view, they wanted to dim it because it reminded them of everything they had lost within themselves. I argued that unconscious people cannot tolerate consciousness in others. Your growth threatens them. Your healing highlights their unresolved pain. Your boundaries expose their violations. So they mistreated you to keep you small, to weaken your light, to pull you down into the same unconscious state they inhabit. But this is the point where everything begins to shift. For I discovered the counterforce. I uncovered what I consider my most significant contribution to psychology, the process of individuation. This is the journey of becoming your true, self-integrating the parts of you that were previously rejected and moving from an unconscious existence to a conscious one. This is exactly how you stop attracting mistreatment. Individuation requires performing one of the most challenging acts a human can face, confronting your shadow. You must examine the aspects of yourself you have denied, the anger you suppressed, the needs you ignored, the strength you surrendered, the boundaries you failed to set, the voice you silenced. Every part of you must be acknowledged, integrated, and reclaimed. Most people avoid this because it is painful. It is easier to blame others for their behavior than to ask, what within me allowed this? It is simpler to remain a victim than to reclaim your authority. Continuing old patterns is more comfortable than breaking them. Yet, those who commit to the work of individuation experience something remarkable. As you integrate your shadow, you become whole. And once whole, you no longer attract fragmented individuals. When you own your anger, you stop attracting rage-driven people. When you honor your needs, you stop attracting those who take from you. When you set firm boundaries, you stop attracting those who violate them. Your energy and presence fundamentally change. Individuation transforms you from someone life happens to into someone who consciously shapes their life. You move from being a character in someone else's unconscious drama to the author of your own story. But individuation is not a single event, it is a lifelong process that begins with a simple but powerful decision. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. This is where the cycle of mistreatment is broken. Freedom requires both psychological insight and decisive action. The first step is recognizing the pattern. Many people are so identified with their suffering that they fail to see the repetitive dynamics in their lives. Examine your relationships honestly. Do you consistently attract the same type of person in different forms, the same emotional unavailability, criticism, or betrayal? Recognition is the first step toward freedom. The next step is withdrawing projections. Stop seeing others as monsters and begin to see them as mirrors. What quality in them triggers your strongest reaction? That is your shadow speaking. If their cruelty enrages you, where have you been cruel to yourself? If their selfishness repels you, where have you denied your own legitimate needs? This does not excuse their behavior, it is a means of reclaiming your own power. Third, you must grieve what you never received the validation you deserved, the affection you needed, and the respect you earned. Many people skip this step, remaining stuck in anger or resentment. I realize that unacknowledged losses keep us tethered to the past. Only by mourning what never came to be can you open space for what is truly possible. Fourth, establishing new boundaries is essential. I view boundaries as the tangible expression of self-respect. Every time you enforce a boundary, you send a clear signal to your subconscious: I matter. My needs matter. I will not tolerate mistreatment. Notice how quickly others adjust when you no longer accept behavior that disrespects you. Fifth, it becomes necessary to consciously choose different people. Your subconscious may still be drawn to familiar patterns. That emotionally unavailable person may feel comfortingly familiar, which can be mistaken for connection. That critical person may seem simply honest. You must override these unconscious tendencies with deliberate choices. Seek relationships that feel unfamiliar precisely because they are healthy and secure. At a certain point in the individuation process, everything changes. I call this stage the transformation, the death of the old self, and the rise of the new. This is where you stand now, whether you fully recognize it or not. Transformation is never comfortable. The old self must be released, the people pleaser, the victim, the one who settled for less. And as with any death, there is loss. Even when letting go is necessary, you will grieve the patterns you leave behind, feeling the absence of old pain even as you step into a new state of peace. During this phase, you will face tests. Those who once mistreated you may reappear, offering what you once longed for. This is a final examination of your growth. Will you return to familiar pain or honor the transformation? Many fail the first test. They give it another chance, believing the outcome will differ. True transformation, however, means recognizing that they have not changed. You haven't. The person you are becoming no longer fits into the confines you once accepted. The familiar environment will start to feel restrictive. Old relationships may feel stifling. Established patterns may become unbearable. This discomfort is a clear sign of your growth. As I've mentioned, there is no path to self-awareness without experiencing pain. What you are feeling is the pain of transformation. Accept it. I've outlined both the theory and practical steps to guide you. Here's what you need to start doing today to ensure you no longer tolerate mistreatment. First, begin a shadow journal. Each evening, note what triggered reactions during your day. Who upset you? Which behaviors irritated you? Then ask yourself, what does this reveal about my own shadow? This exercise accelerates self-awareness more than any other method. Remember, the unconscious shapes your life until it is brought into consciousness, and this journal helps illuminate it. Second, practice active imagination. Dedicate 15 minutes daily to quiet reflection or meditation. Visualize yourself establishing boundaries with those who have mistreated you. Imagine saying what you never could before. This practice reprograms your unconscious and supports the creation of real boundaries in your life. Third, develop what I call witness consciousness, the ability to observe your patterns without judgment. When you feel old compulsions toward someone who harms you, pause and observe. Remind yourself, this is my wounded inner child seeking familiarity. But I am now the conscious adult, and I will choose differently. Fourth, find your individuation community, people committed to their own conscious growth. Healing cannot happen in isolation, nor in the presence of those who wish to keep you diminished. Seek wise counselors, therapeutic groups, spiritual communities, or companions devoted to growth. They will reflect your light rather than attempt to dim it. Fifth, engage with your dreams. Your unconscious communicates through symbols each night. Keep a dream journal and note recurring themes. Dreams reveal what is unhealed, what is ready to integrate. and what seeks entry into your conscious life. Sixth, practice radical self-honesty. Self-deception is perhaps the greatest barrier to individuation. Recognize why you tolerate mistreatment and stop making excuses for those who show you who they truly are. Truth is liberating, though it may initially bring discomfort. I have devoted my entire life to exploring one fundamental question: how do we become our true selves? What I've discovered is this: we become who we are by embracing every part of ourselves that we have denied, by facing what we have avoided, and by taking responsibility for what we have projected onto others. Those who have hurt or mistreated you can, in a sense, be your greatest teachers. Not because they acted with kindness, but because they reveal the areas within you that require healing. They expose your wounds, your patterns, and the unconscious programming that governs your actions. Once you gain this awareness, it cannot be ignored. In my perspective, there are two types of people in the world: those who live unconsciously and those who live with awareness. The first group will continue to repeat the same patterns, attracting the same challenges, and wondering why life feels so difficult. The second group breaks free from these cycles. Which path will you choose? I believe the greatest privilege in life is to become your authentic self. Now that you understand this, the key question is, will you commit to the work it requires? The impact of mistreatment only loses its hold when you change, not when others change. Your transformation begins the moment you decide to act. Bring your unconscious into awareness. Integrate your shadow. Strive for wholeness, and you will witness every aspect of your life shift. The power has always been within you. Welcome home to yourself.